Hi, I'm Erica Schorgl,
And I'm Allie Dierks.
and we're going to be answering reading response 3 today. So in the first article that I went over, written by Collins, it talks about Jay and his story. Basically, within the article, he's in a meeting with his grandma, Miss Simpson, and Miss Armstrong, and they're talking about all of basically the bad things that he does within the classroom. He's always disrupting and being controlling, and he's very compulsive, and he doesn't really have a lot of self-control, and that's why the teachers decided to have the meeting. And when they did, they were literally just listing all the things that he was doing bad, um, and not telling him any good things. And every single time that he tried to chime in and say, I'm trying, they would just interrupt him and just tell him otherwise. Um, so basically, um, they're really not giving him the opportunity to share his side, and his grandmother also tried to speak up for him, but they just kept interrupting. And then we read another article.
And then I read the article Closing the Racial Achievement Gap in Our Schools. And this talked about Ray, a child named Ray. And he was having disciplinary issues in the classroom and was what you could consider a problem child and was separated from the general education setting very often and frequently. And so this article basically discussed how with doing so, this can create kind of a vicious cycle if teachers just, this can also create a label to these specific students in which these students can become aware of the label they've been put on them as like the bad kid or the good kid. And students are smart and they pick up on this really easily. So that can be a negative effect on and can just lead to this behavior being reinforced by this kid. And so the main issue was that there's, even at the administration level and the school-wide level, there needs to be consistent practices on how they deal with discipline issues. And although it can be good to separate a child from the general education setting when there's disruption and problem behavior, that solves the issue in the moment, but there also needs to be a plan to solve the issue afterwards and actually discuss with the child, what happened, because if that doesn't happen and there's no consistency, then this behavior can keep being reinforced. So I think it comes down to, at least with this article, comes down to teachers setting expectations within the general classroom, and it can be hard when there's problem children and there will always be, that one person in the classroom. Not that it will totally eliminate problem issues, but setting expectations and just being very consistent can help this type of situation.
Yeah. Going back to the term warm demander pedagogy, this is in the article where, and he describes it as culturally responsive teaching, which I believe is super important. And another question that's asked within like the reading response question is, how would you go about these students differently and how would you bring them up differently? I think that the way that the teachers went about in Jay's situation wasn't necessarily to the standards that should have been brought up. I think that it's super important to be nice to your students, but also, like Allie said, set those expectations as to where, like, they know, like, you can't always be, like, nice with them and warm with them, but, like, you need to, like, set those standards for them to do well, and you're not only teaching them, like, the educational needs that they do need, but also to become good people in general, like, in society. Like, you're also teaching them how to be a good person.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going off of that, in the article that I had, it talked about how warm demander can be related to my article because setting expectations is key, but also that in the article I read, it's almost expectations of African American students could be different or seen differently, like in this article where an African American Ray is treated poorly. And so I think just warm demander pedagogy kind of reinforces setting clear expectations and equal expectations for every student, because then, I mean, this article talked about how a racial gap can form, and also students can pick up easily on if certain students are treated differently within the classroom, in which Ray was treated differently. And so just having equal expectations for all students is very important.
Very important. Alrighty, thank you.